everybody, and welcome back to the Drive Pink Dialogue. It is Monday. We are about 48 hours since Inter Miami. Actually, we're more than 48 hours because it was an afternoon game. But Inter Miami took their trip to Disney World, and they had some fun, but ultimately left disappointed. A trip to a historic stadium that is not really that good for playing soccer in. As always, I'm your host, Scotty. I'm here with my co-host, Saur. How are you feeling today, my man?
I've had a long weekend. I was at that game. It was a great game. Good to watch Inter Miami live in action. The result didn't go our way, so I'm a little bit disappointed. But I'm ready to talk all things Inter Miami with you as always. How are you, my friend?
I'm feeling fine. I agree with you. I think that it was disappointing. I think it would have been really cool to get a win there. It is something we've never really done. And so to have that opportunity right in front of us, be 1 minute away, was gut-wrenching and made it feel worse than it actually was. I think upon reflection, upon watching the game back, upon getting a sense for what actually happened, I think my conclusion is it was a fair draw, and I'm happy that we got a point on the road. Playing MLS on the road, playing on the road in MLS is very difficult, and we may have forgotten that because of how many wins we've racked up on the road, but it remains true. And so 1 point on the road at a stadium that we've really struggled at historically, I'm okay with.
You said it happened right in front of you. It literally happened right in front of me. I was sitting, 100 meters away from when the goal was scored. It wasn't fun. And after the game, I was sitting next to New York fans, and I told them I think this is a fair result. I don't think Inter Miami did enough to deserve a win. I don't think New York was poor enough to deserve to lose. So overall, a fair result. And I'm kind of glad we're doing this at least a couple of days after the fact, because it gave me time to reflect. The emotions are now out of the system, and I'm okay with this result, man. It could have been much worse, and I know we were so close to winning finally at the Disney Mickey Mouse Stadium, but not today, unfortunately.
Yes, and the New York City FC curse continues. Inter Miami continues to have just one all-time victory against the boys from Blue, and considering who they're based off of and who their sister club is in England, I'm sure that makes you extra sad. There are a couple things. There are a couple things that have happened over the last couple of days in Inter Miami's world, and so I figured we should talk about them. The first is an update about Diego Gomez. This came from the doctor of the Paraguay national team, and he said that there's a small issue, but it's not serious, and that he should return to the field sooner rather than later. That doesn't necessarily mean he'll be back on Saturday, but that is my best assumption as we speak. I thought they would just give him a chance to rest through the road trip, and then come back fresh next Saturday at home for a 3-game stretch where we're going to need him because we're playing some really good teams. We're playing on the road a pair of times, and so it's just an opportunity to let him rest and reset and get him back at full strength when the time comes. And then the other thing, which I wanted to get your opinion on, is a report from Footy Headlines, who is really good about kits. They do a lot of kit news and releases, and they get a lot of like renderings and stuff before they actually come out. They certainly have sources, and they are reporting that Inter Miami is planning on releasing new home and away kits in 2025, breaking with MLS tradition, which generally says you get a home kit every other year, and then you get a road kit in the off year. So you get one new kit per season. This would be really breaking from tradition. I think only one MLS team has ever done this before. And I guess the idea is it's a jersey to celebrate Lionel Messi. I have some ulterior thoughts about this, but I wanted to get your perspective first.
I mean, from the first instance and having just heard this news, it seems like a money grab thing, right? Where you want to sell as many kits as you can while Lionel Messi is still at Inter Miami. It's a business decision at the end of the day. I don't know. I don't see why there would be any other reason for them to break from tradition and release home and away kits in the same season itself. We had a new kit this year as well. So just seems like one of those business-minded decisions that's probably going to rake in some revenue for the MLS for Inter Miami. And yeah, I haven't seen the kits. Has the kit render been released yet, or is that okay? So
No
I
kit
guess
render.
I like new kits, so it'll be interesting to see what they come up with. But I see this as a business decision.
I will say I am a big fan of new kits and I like
Yeah.
refreshing it. And I think that especially if you have a kit that you don't particularly like, it only lasts 1 year, 15, 20, 25 games max, and then it gets recycled. Whereas if you have a kit you don't like for 2 years, you can end up playing a long time. And especially for a club like Inter Miami that is in a key point of their history or very young, you can end up having that one kit have a huge mark on your history in terms of the biggest moments. And so I am happy that they're going to try and get off of this, and I hope that it continues. I actually wouldn't mind 2 kits a year. I know some people will be upset because they like to buy all the kits and they don't want to spend the money, but other than that reason, I think it's cool to get new kits every season. I also think it might introduce the possibility of having throwbacks every once in a while. I think it would be awesome if the team wore like a heartbeat kit.
I will say Adidas has been poor in the quality of kits that they've been producing for a lot of the teams, so they need to up their game. They just need to up their game. I love the El Noche kits, but for Inter Miami, they're fine. But some of the other kits that they have for other teams are not the best. So hopefully they do a good job here.
Yeah, well, I was just going to say, I don't love the togetherness kits, actually. I liked the heartbeat kits better, and I hope that the new ones are a little bit fresher. And they are going to be designed to celebrate Messi's career or achievements or whatever. So hopefully they really put a good design together. And I guess that leads me to the last part on this is I saw some speculation when this was reported that Inter Miami feels like next season might be Lionel Messi's last season, and that's why they want to really push these types of things. And so, is that a step too far? A jump in logic there, maybe. But I also understand why people might feel that way.
No, yeah, I think that's understandable, man. He's definitely coming towards the swan song of his career, and you don't want to overstay your welcome as a player unless you're Ibrahimovic, who can continue to play till like they're 55. I think most
Or
players,
Lionel Messi.
or Lionel Messi, but you can see that he's definitely struggling a little bit with injuries from time to time, and whether it's next year, whether it's in a couple of years, it's going to happen soon enough. So. It's better to be prepared mentally than to not think about that eventuality. And I'm sure the club wants to celebrate whatever he's done for the beautiful sport of football.
My honest opinion is I don't think that decision has been made yet.
I
I
don't
have
think so
said
either.
for a while that I think Messi's last team will be Inter Miami. I don't think he's going to go back to Barcelona. I don't think he's going to go to Argentina. In fact, I think he's going to be based in South Florida for a while. But is he going to retire? And so maybe that's why Inter Miami wants to do this. I think that decision is probably going to be made in the 2 or 3 months before the season ends next year. But we will see. I think that's it, man. Anything else in the world that has your attention?
No, I think it's fairly standard, regularly scheduled tuning. So yeah, nothing from my end.
Okay, then let's get into this game. An early start frustrated me because I had a lot of other things I wanted to do on a
Yeah,
Saturday
like
afternoon,
college football.
like watch college football. And also my favorite team in Europe also was playing around that time, and I couldn't do either of those. And so all 3 of the events I was looking forward to got condensed into one time period, which was incredibly frustrating. But that is the case. By the way, I should mention Inter Miami's upcoming game against Toronto has also been rescheduled for early afternoon at 1 o'clock Eastern time, I believe. That's in 2 weeks from this past Saturday, October 5th. And so, mark your calendars. That's going to be a 1 o'clock Eastern time game. I looked at the calendar and I'm not going to have the same problems with my other teams I want to watch. So I'm not as
So
upset about it.
selfish, man. So selfish.
That's fair. I will take that. But anyways, it was an early game, early kickoff. We had a rotated back lineup because in the previous game against Atlanta, we had 8 new players in the starting 11. This time we get all of our stars back. Jordi Alba, most of our stars back. Luis Suárez and Lionel Messi. Sergio Busquets not available, and same with Diego Gomez. But still, this was a star-studded lineup. Anyone who went to the game in New York, maybe at Yankee Stadium, would have gotten their money's worth in terms of the players that actually were on the field. And yet, I don't think the performance really lived up to it. before I get into some of the big moments, what were you feeling pregame? I know you were at the stadium, but when you saw the lineup, when you saw New York's lineup, how are you feeling about this game going in?
So it was interesting because I was genuinely convinced that we were going to score 7 past this New York team. I thought we had it in us. I thought we were going to do it. And then as soon as I walked into the stadium and looked at the size of that pitch, I was like, nah, we're not. We're barely going to score 1.5 goals, let alone 7, because that is a small pitch.
Can I
that
tell you something?
could have. Yeah, go on.
I didn't want to tell you this pregame because I knew you wanted to go with this 7-2 prediction, but Inter Miami had never scored in the run of play at Yankee Stadium. So
I was aware of that, and I was aware of the size difference in the normal regular pitches as well, compared to the New York Yankee Stadium. But I wasn't prepared for actually seeing it live and being like, okay, this is small, it's tiny. I could have run the length of the pitch in 10 seconds. Again, no, maybe not that fast, but still. So yeah, it kind of deflated me
I
a
hope
little
you
bit.
could run in 10 seconds. It's not like it would be bad if you couldn't, I think.
Yeah,
10 seconds is
I'd be quite healthy in that sense. But yeah,
just
overall,
kidding,
I
actually.
thought
110 yards, maybe. Never mind. I take it all back.
But yeah, I thought it wouldn't be that easy to score goals here. I was very happy with the seats that I had. So brilliant view, great tactical eagle's eye view of the game. Players were all ready, seemingly all the best players that we would want, you and I think any other game, and we would have absolutely loved this lineup. But it was fairly standard. There wasn't anything much exciting happening. I thought New York was the better team for large parts of the game. And yeah, it didn't live up to the expectations that you would have wanted to, finally beating your boogeyman. And in fact, we couldn't. And it just so happens that New York continues to be the bane of our existence. But at the start of the game, I was confident with the players and the pitch we could put up a result. And for the large parts, we almost did.
Okay, let's get into it. It starts slowly, but there are some moments of, I think, that stood out. Even though it wasn't back and forth, there was a couple moments where each team got an opportunity. In the 5th minute, Inter Miami earns a free kick, and Messi puts that shot about a foot wide, but it was really well taken, really well hit, just about a foot wide. I think even he thought when he hit it that it had a chance to go in. And then in the 11th minute, NYCFC counters. Hannes Wolf has a free kick opportunity that hits off the post and then off Drake Calendar's head and goes out. So 2 close calls, one for each team in the early going. But then it really settled in. 23rd minute, Messi, and this is probably the true one, I wish I had it back moment. Messi has a great entry ball to Luis Suárez, who taps it wide to Gressel, takes a step back, and then receives it back from Gressel for the shot, and he fires it right off the back of Robert Taylor, who is offsides, and ultimately, the play ends there because it's a fresh start. This was the moment, right, in the first half that Inter Miami really had a chance to take this game to NYCFC, and something that just happens every once in a while happened, and it stopped Inter Miami from taking that early lead.
Yeah, and I didn't see it when it first happened. I was right there, and I didn't see it. I thought it hit a I don't know what it hit. I just saw it was offside. I thought maybe it was Gressel who was offside, but upon replay, it was Robert Taylor who came in the way of a wide gaping goal. And honestly, that was probably the best chance of the game that we had for the course of the 90 minutes. But you could sense that the Inter Miami players were really struggling to get a grip of this game. The weight in the passes was all off. The spacing was quite poor. And not in a defensive way. I think defensively we were very solid. Everyone was doing their job really well. Offensively, we were really struggling to put something together. But that one moment showed that the best way to break this New York City FC team is to play quick passes. They have to be inch perfect, because a little bit too hard or a little bit too soft, and a New York player would just come in and intercept or boot it out. So that was the best way to get at them. Unfortunately, those moments were few and far, and when it did happen, Robert Taylor decided, "You shall not pass today." So
that's all I have for the first half, man. It was not a half full of opportunities. I didn't think either side really played in a way that felt like they should have taken control of this game. And so we get into the half waiting for something to be the catalyst to get this game going. And it doesn't really come early in the second half either. There was an opportunity by Hans Wolf that he had a chance from the edge of the box, but Callender got down quickly to make the save. That was in the 61st minute. In the 64th minute is when I believe the tussle, the fracasso started between Jordi Alba, Lionel Messi, Thiago Martins, and in the next four or 5 minutes, we get 6 yellow cards, probably 8 yellow cards, 2 going to the assistant coach, who for the second time this season has gotten kicked out of a game. Do you like watching Messi when he's all frustrated? Because I feel like we've seen it enough, and I have an opinion, and I would like to hear what you feel.
I will say, I think this game needed exactly that moment. It needed some spice. It needed to liven things up. It just felt too pedestrian, too clunky. Nothing was happening as such. Lionel Messi looked off. Suárez looked absent. Jordi Alba wasn't playing particularly well. The defense was the only thing that was good. And I really enjoyed watching Toto Avilés and Ian Frey on that right-hand side, because I thought they were doing some good job of defending the ball, and also the progression of the play was happening on that Gresso Ian Frey side. And you could sense the frustration in the players. It was clunky. The balls weren't coming off. It was overhit at times. And then that yellow card happened, and then another yellow card happened, and then another yellow card happened. And then Toto Avilés was like, I don't want to miss out. So he also got a yellow card. And then the stadium was really popping off. Like, the stadium was obviously very pro New York, at least on my side of the pitch. And you could sense the tide shifting a little bit. And after that, for at least 5-10 minutes, Lionel Messi got on the ball a lot more and started doing things a lot more. And I sensed that, okay, this is something that we're going to start creating from now, because you could sense a little bit of frustration coming in. But then that dipped down as well. So I don't think, for me, Lionel Messi being frustrated is as much of an issue as Suárez being frustrated. I think Messi is fine when he's frustrated. I think he takes control of the game more.
Frustrated maybe is the wrong word. Angry or upset or pissed off.
Yeah.
Is maybe the right term for it. And you could tell he and Thiago Martins had a butting of heads, and it was continuing throughout the rest of the game. I will say, I think we've seen Messi have these types of moments enough over the past year to say sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And so when I see people talking about, oh, Messi's getting upset, he's about to take over the game, that's not really the feeling I get anymore, because it can really go either way.
In this game, for like at least the next 5-10 minutes. And I think that's when the goal came as well, when Messi started playing centrally and decided to take the ball a little bit and take players on a little bit more. But again, it didn't last for the entirety of the rest of the second half. So yeah, I get your point in that. It can go either ways. Usually I think it goes positively, but yes, like in that game, it was not that effective.
Like you said, 5 to 10 minutes later, in the 75th minute, Lionel Messi does get on the ball centrally. He pushes it wide to Jordi Alba, and then pushes it centrally for a tap-in from Leo Campana. Inter Miami finally breaks through. It is 1-0. And even though it was a very frustrating game up until this point, it did feel like this was just going to be one of those games where Inter Miami, even though they didn't play great, even though they didn't have tremendous individual moments, even though they didn't control the style of play and the pace of play, they just had the individual talent to get the goals that they needed when they needed them. And that's exactly what happened here. Inter Miami takes a 1-0 lead because of Campana, because of Messi, because of Jordi Alba. And NYCFC didn't look like they were, up until that point, ready to go score 1 or 2.
Yeah, and it came... sorry, I'm reading the comment and it's making me laugh. But the goal came against the run of play. That was very much clear. But as soon as Campana came on, he was a lot more effective than Robert Taylor. And I think that a part of it had to do with the fact that he was drifting a little bit centrally, creating that space in behind for Jordi Alba to try and use that opportunity. I thought Campana's movement was very effective compared to some of the other forward players like Suárez and Robert Taylor. And he was a big part of that first goal that we scored. Again, we knew that the goal was going to come with a moment of a properly weighted pass in the right channel at the right time to the right player. So it was almost like aligning of the planets for that to come through, because there was very little space to work a goal like that. And Miami loves to score goals like that. So it happened. It was very, very good. I think well constructed. Ian Frey got the ball, put it off to Redondo. Redondo with a good pass into Messi. Messi with a really good run and a pass well weighted into Jordi Alba. I thought Jordi Alba was going to shoot from there. I didn't expect him to pass, but what a good pass. Campana, composure, right place, right time. 1-0. And I thought, okay, I think we're going to win this game quite easily. And I just want to address Pablo's comment here, who says we need to get Saur a few refrigerator magnets and dishes to leave in the counter. I will say, Pablo, and this is a secret that I've been harboring for the last 100 so episodes that we've been doing. I clear out my entire counter before we start the podcast so you guys don't see any of the mess. Anyways, moving on.
While we're with the chat, I just want to answer a question from Francisco earlier, who asked about MLS rescheduling Inter Miami's games to earlier in the afternoon. I think they're doing it so that other MLS fans can watch Messi, because if they play at 7:30, fans can't watch both Messi and their own team play. They can only watch, they choose their own team. And so they want to get more screen time from other MLS fans who have other games to watch that night. That's why they're doing it.
Ruins my afternoon, man.
Yeah, I know. It doesn't help for the Inter Miami fans. Anyways, getting into the final 15 minutes of the game, NYCFC clearly needs a goal to get a result here. Santi Rodriguez had a big chance inside the box in the 87th minute, but he put it just wide. And then finally in the 95th minute, Inter Miami concedes a corner, and Santi Rodriguez puts in the corner. James Sands goes up for it and beats his man to the ball, puts in the back of the net. Nothing Callender could have done. I want to sit on this goal for a moment and this whole sequence, because it starts with Leo Campana fouling, I want to say Hans Wolf, but it may have been someone else, because he wants to get Noah Allen checked out, who is lying on the floor injured. How'd you feel about that?
That was a very chaotic run of play, because there was a couple of times where an Inter Miami player went down. Suárez went down, I believe, 5 minutes earlier in their half. New York City players kept playing. Then that happened to Noah Allen, and I thought the Noah Allen injury was a little bit more serious, but the New York players kept playing, and they didn't put the ball out. I don't think Campana's intentions were to foul the player directly, and I thought he almost had the ball won cleanly, but again, saw the replay, he did not, and that was a foul.
He was clearly fouling to try and get Noah Allen looked at. What I will say is there were two changes of possession between when Noah Allen went down and when the foul for Campana happened. And so the referee, it's not like it was a breakaway either way. He had plenty of opportunity to stop the game and check out Noah Allen. It's true he doesn't have to, but that is sort of how the game is refereed these days. And Campana, who clearly saw Noah Allen was in pain and had to leave the game immediately after that, makes the foul to try and stop the clock, to try and get Noah Allen looked at.
Honestly, the goal didn't come off of that set piece anyways. It came off the set piece that came afterwards, and we should have defended that better, man. I wouldn't blame Campana on that for any.
I wouldn't either. Yeah. And so they get a free kick. It gets deflected out of bounds, and then they get the corner. Santi Rodriguez puts it in. I watched it happen live, and James Sands goes up for it, puts the ball in the back of the net, and there are a bunch of Inter Miami players lying on the floor asking for a foul. And so I'm watching this, and I'm like, are they going to go to VAR? Are they going to check it out? Is the broadcast crew going to, show what happened? And all of the replays on the broadcast crew, at least in the first, 60 seconds of it happening, because we came on to do this instant reaction as soon as the game ended, they didn't show what happened to Yannick Bright. So today, when I'm rewatching the game, it is so clear that Thiago Martins just shoves Yannick Bright to the ground, and that absolutely should have been a foul. It was a foul. It was not related to why James Sands scored, and I think in that moment, 94th minute at home for NYCFC, they're probably not going to look at it, but disappointing because it was a clear foul in the box, and it does come before the goal. As far as the actual goal, Toto Aviles, that's his man. He thinks he's about to get the header, and James Sands just goes higher and in front of him and gets to it first. So, you got to judge him for not being physical enough there.
Wrong positioning as well. Yeah, more than
a tough
physical,
moment.
wrong positioning.
for a player that had a great game otherwise.
And when I saw that, I thought it's going to be called off for the foul, because I saw Yannick Bright on the ground, felt like the other player was on him and shoved him to the ground. So I genuinely thought it'd be pulled back, but no, the game ended and I was like, oof, yeah. Hard one.
Anything else from this game, man? I know we didn't just talk about a lot, but it didn't feel like this game had a lot of intriguing moments in that sense.
All right, guys, that's it from us at the Direct Ping Dialogue. We're going to see you next time. I think you're right. It was a meh game. There wasn't anything much exciting in terms of what happened over the course of 90 minutes. And honestly, I'm glad to see this New York team, the back of this New York team. I don't know if we get to see them again in the playoffs.
Unlikely.
If we do, it's probably going to be at home, and it's going to be hard if we play them in the playoffs, because we don't have a good result against them. But yeah, I think it is what it is, man. I hate New York City FC now, really do.
As far as NYCFC, Inter Miami, the overwhelming favorites to be the number 1 seed in the East. NYCFC currently 7th. They have really struggled lately. They have 4 points in their last 9 MLS games. And even though it must feel like a win because of how the game played out on Saturday, it doesn't change the fact that they have struggled mightily in the league of late. They were once sort of in play to be that number 4 seed, and I suppose they still are. But they have, again, not had a good run of form. They're sitting on 41 points. They're currently, as we speak, behind Orlando City and Charlotte. Orlando City has been on a tear lately. They have brought themselves back into the picture. We've been trying not to talk about them, but they have earned it. But NYCFC, 5 points ahead of Toronto, 5 points above Philadelphia, probably heading for that 5th, 6th, 7th seed. Not likely to play Inter Miami unless they pull off an upset in the first round. So I do think this is the last time we're going to see NYCFC this year.
Hope so. I really hope that's the case.
Okay, let's talk about the field, because I thought there was 2 ways in which the field really affected play, and I talked about it in our instant reaction, but I wanted to deep dive with you on it. And the first is obviously the dimensions. It's very narrow. It's very tight. It is hard to play through the wide channels, and so you have to play through the middle. Even if you use your wide players to play through the middle, there's just not a ton of space to play wide and space things out and use the patterns of play that Inter Miami likes to use. So we were doing some things with Messi. We were doing some things with Suárez that weren't quite coming off because of the condensed nature of the field. But also the turf itself, or the grass itself, I thought played very heavy and very rough. There's a lot of balls that are bouncing. It's very hard to have that technical skill and capacity that Inter Miami is, has players that can do that to the best degree. What was your impression? You watched it from the stadium. How did you think the field really affected what Inter Miami and Inter Miami's players wanted to do in this game?
Yeah, I think the biggest aspect of Inter Miami's game, which is creating overloads and then maybe switching, was completely nullified by this stadium, because you can start attacking on one side of the pitch. That's fine. There's a side that has a little bit more width to it, which we were doing with Ian Frey and Julian Gressel. But the opposite side with Jordi Alba and Robert Taylor had absolutely zero service. You just could not switch the ball from one side to the other, because it would go out, or it would just lead to a bad touch, and then someone would have to pull in, and then by that time New York City players had already put back their shape. So it was really difficult using the width of the field, and that neutralizes another aspect of Inter Miami's game, which is trying to pull apart the center a little bit and create those gaps in between for someone like Messi and Suárez to make the runs into. New York just clogged up the middle, not allowing any of the balls to go through. A couple of balls that we actually managed to put through them, they were overhit, they bounced around, nobody was able to control it properly. It just felt like every single time an Inter Miami player got the ball in their feet, 2 New York players were already on them. This game needed a lot of technical prowess. We saw our best technical players in Lionel Messi, Jordi Alba struggle a little bit. I felt like we needed to surround them with maybe a little bit more technicality to get the best out of them.
I think it was, again, 2 different aspects to this field that really hurt Inter Miami, because you want super technical players, ultra technical players on a smaller pitch, because they can operate in those very tight spaces. But then when you add a pitch that has heavy bounces and isn't very clean, you saw Suárez get visibly frustrated. He really struggled to adjust to the turf.
There was
I
this
thought,
one moment, I think, in the second half before we scored where Suarez got a ball in a really good position and he just tried to palm it off and it literally didn't even go to like 2 feet.
I know.
And
Yeah.
you were like, oh, that's not very like him. So you could see they were struggling in terms of handling the conditions of the turf, handling the width of the pitch. The spacing was all off. That was very much visible. And one thing that actually was positive for Inter Miami, which was the defense and how well we defended, was I think also due to the fact that we had a much narrower space to defend. There weren't that many transitions that we had to deal with. And I thought all the back four, Jordi Alba, Noah Allen, Aviles, and Ian Frey did a really good job defending that, but I thought it got made easier. Defending was a lot easier on this pitch than the offensive side of the game.
I thought Suárez was most affected by it. I did think Messi eventually sort of figured it out. I did think Jordi Alba eventually figured it out. I did think Federico Redondo eventually figured it out. I don't think Suárez ever figured it out. And again, when you combine that with just 4 guys in the back who are playing 8 yards apart from each other, there was just no room for him to operate. So he was kind of pulling himself out of position. And when he did get on the ball, he was sort of continually putting poor touches to it and turning the ball over. On the other side, though, I thought there was some players that had really good adjustments. I thought Noah Allen figured out this field very quickly, and he played really well. Same thing with Yannick Bright. There was a moment in the 21st minute because in the first 10 minutes or so, he tries to win the ball on the body of the player, and that's sort of his strategy, or to go for the interception. And he got beat a couple times in the first 10 minutes or so. But in the 21st minute, I noticed that he figured out I shouldn't be trying to get the interception. I shouldn't be trying to take the ball off the player's body, but instead I should wait for them to play a bad touch and lose it a foot or a yard off of them and then get it there. He did get an interception in that 21st minute. And I could see some of these guys are starting to figure out how this field is playing, what they need to be doing. And it was sort of disappointing because it was our stars that really struggled to figure it out. And again, I thought Alba started to get it in the second half of the first half, or the last 10 minutes of the first half, and Messi was much better in the second half. But you need your stars to be stars, and I think that they struggled to get into.
But I will say the adjustments were also different for the players that you mentioned versus the players that were playing in the forward line. So the adjustment for players like Noah Allen, Ian Frey, Bright were more to do with how to manage, how to close down the spacing, whereas the adjustments for Messi and Suarez were how to create more spacing. You mentioned Bright. That was absolutely spot on, exactly what I saw. There were a couple of instances where I thought he overcommitted at the start, and then the player just ran past him. He's like, oh, how did that happen? Or he got a foul, or he wasn't in the right place to make that block of the interception. And I thought he wasn't having a great game, but then he figured it out really easily as to, okay, if I just stand in the right spot, close down the channels or the flanks and just stop the ball from going into the place that it's supposed to go, I'm going to be much more effective. And he decided doing that a lot more, understood the spacing really well. The backline defensive spacing was really good. Noah Allen played, I think, one of his best games for Inter Miami thus far. Ian Frey, again, very commanding. He constantly asks for the ball and does things that really help the cause. And this is where I would say Ian Frey stood out more so than some of the stars that we have on the pitch. That one run in the 90th minute where he took the ball and just charged forward with it, dribbled, got to the final third, passed it off to Suarez, and Suarez's ball was overhit straight to the keeper, whereas Ian Frey was running straight into it. And I was like, okay, if he's figured it out, then other players need to around him figure it out as well. And he did that a couple of times. So yeah, you're absolutely right in that some of our younger players were very quick to adjust to the turf and to the spacing and everything. But it just felt like it took a little bit longer to some of the other players to adjust.
As far as the width of the team, or the width of the pitch, really, I actually don't think this was something Inter Miami really struggled to understand. They had key players that didn't play particularly well in what they were trying to do. But like you mentioned, Ian Frey was getting down that right side and creating possession in the final third on that side of the pitch. I thought Jordi Alba also did that a couple times. He was playing a little bit more conservatively in this game, but when he did get forward, he was able to create dangerous situations up the pitch, 1 or 2 that were called offsides. But in general, he was able to do that in the last hour of the game. But it was centrally that we really struggled. And this is where we really needed to be good. And I thought we lost the midfield. And I thought that was because we didn't get tremendous play in terms of ball progression from Federico Redondo, who was supposed to be that guy. Now, let's hold off on talking about him individually, but just generally speaking, it was Redondo's role to progress the ball through the midfield, and Messi, who was consistently coming back, especially in the first half, to try and get the ball to carry it forward. And neither were really doing that job effectively. And so we had to rely on Ian Fred, Julian Gress on the right side, and then later on Jordi Alba on the left.
And you know what? There is one aspect of the spacing that we should mention, because I think the conversation about the middle has to do with the spacing and has to do with the setup. I do think that Ian Frey, Jordi Alba were very effective playing that role of keeping the width and using the flanks a little bit. But I thought we might have been served better by using a back three and then having just the wingers in the side and then clog up the middle ourselves, sort of. And I know that sounds counterintuitive, but we needed players to play off of, or almost entirely play that 1-4, like back and forth, 1-2 in the middle with some of the players. Redondo wasn't doing that. Bright doesn't do that. That's not his role. So it just felt like we were quite empty in the middle, and everyone was trying to play either on the back of the defenders or on the sides, and there was nothing in the middle of that square. So I would have even just might gone with just the two right wing backs and left wing backs, and then clog up the middle to allow some of those passing lanes to maybe be a little intricate and touchy, because Inter Miami does that really, really well. So I know that sounds counterintuitive, but I thought it could have been better if we had maybe someone like Rojas in the middle. Unfortunately, he was missing, but we needed a couple of more bodies in that center of the pitch.
No, I definitely think Rojas would have been very helpful in this game. You saw Robert Taylor sort of occupy a lot of those spaces. He was trying to stay out of Jordi Alba's way. He knew there wasn't space for both of them down that left side. He was coming into the midfield, struggling to find the game, I thought. And again, if you get a little bit more from Federico Redondo, Messi figures it out a little bit earlier, especially sort of deeper on the pitch to help us progress the ball. And then also you get more from Robert Taylor. I think you can see what the game plan was. It just didn't feel like it came off particularly well. And so that's, to me, why I keep coming back to this point that I thought it was actually the turf or the field that was a bigger impact than just the dimensions. I think that we didn't have the players that could do what they were trying to do. It wasn't so much that we
Messi has struggled against turf a couple of times, I think. Against
Philadelphia. No, it's not turf. It's not turf. I don't want to. It's not like AstroTurf. It's just the grass. But yes. Okay. One of the things I talked about in the pregame was this connection between Messi and Ian Frey down that right side, and the space that Ian Frey would have because Messi likes to come centrally. I thought we saw that, man. I really thought we saw it. And I really liked it. And I thought to myself, if there was more space, it would be even more effective. And I want to see it again. And now I don't know if I should be upset that I got to see it and now I won't get to see it in the next game, or just happy that I got to see it in the first place. Where are you at with that?
Nah, man, Ian Frey has shown time and again that he's the more effective right back that we have in this team. He was really, really good for the majority of the game. He does so many things that just Chelo Wigan doesn't do, and that's not a knock on Wigan. I know it comes across as we're taking a stab at Wigan as a player. It's just not. Frey is the better right back on this team, and we saw that with Messi on the pitch. There's so much more dimension in that right side of the pitch. I know Julian Gressel was primarily playing that role of maintaining the width on the right-hand side. We were set up in a 4-4-2, basically. So Messi was playing slightly central than actually on the right-hand side. But if we play a normal game with that regular 4-3-3 formation, I think that Frey-Messi combination is absolutely going to tear apart the MLS. And it's just a shame that Tata Martino is going to rob us of that, because it's not going to happen, at least not in the next couple of games. Wigan's got his rest for the next year.
Well, I'm sure Frey will start again there in one of these 3 games, but I don't know if it'll be with Messi, so I don't know if it'll be exactly what we want. Okay, my last question before we get to awards is, where are we at with this team? Because I'm looking at the stats, and NYCFC outshot us 17-6. They outgained us in terms of expected goals. this wasn't a game Inter Miami should have won. It is a game that we have won a lot, a style of game we've won a lot because we have those individual moments of brilliance. We should have known we needed a second goal because there's no way we were getting Drake Callender a clean sheet. That doesn't happen. But aside from that, man, it didn't feel like Inter Miami was really the team that deserved 3 points in this. And I think when you look back at the stats, they agree with that. The same thing can be said about Wednesday night's game against Atlanta. And I don't think either of us really loved the performance against Philadelphia. And so now we're 3 games since Messi came back. We're 3 games going back to this style that we had early in the season where we're trying to control the ball, trying to play out from the back. I will add 2 of those games came without Sergio Busquets. And I think we all agree that he would have been huge in this game. But are we feeling good? We were feeling so good. And now the points record feels very difficult to achieve. We don't have this insurmountable lead over Columbus that we thought we did. Of course, if we win 1 game against Charlotte, I think we'll again feel great about it. But for right now, for the next 5 days until we get a chance to get back on the field against Charlotte, where are we at with this team?
Yeah, it doesn't feel great because we've only got 5 points in 9, and I know that sounds absurd in the MLS. 5 points out of 9 is not that bad.
But hey, only 2 from 6. So
only 2 from 6.
It's all about
only
how you splice it.
Only 2 from 6, man. No, overall, I think the outlook is not to do with how many points we're getting now. Yes, I think we're still in a good, comfortable position for the Supporter Shield, but you have to look at the games that we have. That Columbus game is a 6-point swing.
Well, that's it, right? That's the game, right? If we get a draw there, it's over.
Yeah, it's over. We have Charlotte. That's not going to be an easy game either. Then we got New England. Toronto is another big game that we need to play in Canada, basically on the other side of the world. So it's not going to be easy, man. And we made it really difficult for ourselves because these were the 2 games that we should have won based on the opposition that we were facing. Now, I am more upset by the Atlanta game than I am by the New York game. The New York game I don't think it was the players' fault. I don't think it was, the setup could have been slightly different, but I did think it was slightly difficult to adjust to the conditions that we were playing in. So it doesn't feel that bad. But in the grand scheme of things, the future isn't looking too bright because we do have teething issues that we need to get over very quickly, reintegrate Messi back into this team and understand how best we want to play with him. And there's not much time for that. I don't think we're going to get that points record, which is a shame because 2 games ago, we were very excited to get that and be able to break that. Supporter Shield, if we lose from this position, it's going to be really sour going into the playoffs. Really, really sour.
Oh, if we don't win the Supporter Shield, we're not going to win the MLS Cup, and it will be a failure of the season. The team that would catch us is Columbus. They have been the dark horse all along because they've had all those games in hand. LAFC has absolutely fallen off since the League's Cup. Yeah, they're down in 4th place in the West.
They've drew as well.
Colorado. Cincinnati also really fallen off. And so Inter Miami is still in an excellent position, and they are still the overwhelming favorites to win the Supporter Shield. It is really only Columbus who can get a maximum of 71 points. Inter Miami can get 76. So it's just get a couple wins. But that game in Columbus coming up is everything. And I'm worried that Tata Martino is going to take that game off. I really am. We saw this past week that he went all out against the first opponent, which of course is against Philadelphia. And then he rested in the midweek, rotated 8 rotations. And then he went with his full strength squad again on the weekend. If he does that next week, it will be the Columbus game that we take off. And I think Tata Martino is going to say, we don't want to show them what we really have. Let's just rotate everyone. And we'll, if we can get a point, that's great. But I am worried about that. It's
away from home as well, so it's a travel game. And yeah, oh man, you put these thoughts in my head that don't make me feel good about the team, man. Why do you do this to me?
Because I want us to be prepared for the worst. Just hope for the best from here. Okay. Anything else? I mean, is there anything about Tata you want to talk about? I thought he was, it was fine. I would have liked the subs earlier, but that's what Tata does. So
yeah, I mean, there's not much to talk about this game. I think it was a fairly standard game, not much happening throughout, not many chances. I do think tactically we should have tried something different in this game. 4-4-2 wasn't it. I don't think I like the 4-4-2 with Messi at the top. Messi
don't
needs
either.
to be in that midfield because he would have been so effective if he was playing in the center of the pitch with Rojas. And again, I go back to Rojas because we needed him in this game and he wasn't there, and I really hate that. But yeah, not much to talk about in this game overall, I think.
Well, actually, let's stay there at the 4-4-2 for a minute, because we saw this early in the season when they did a 3-5-2 and they just had Messi and Suárez up top, and it never worked. They were less effective offensively because they didn't have any width. I know in this game it was hard to create width, but it's especially hard when you don't try and create width. You don't have guys as like a winger that's pulling players apart. We've talked about this over and over and over again, but I don't like it, man. And Robert Taylor wasn't playing like 4-4-2 in out of possession, but then getting high up the field in possession. Like, he was in the midfield, and Julian Gressel, same thing on that right side. They were not like pseudo wingers. They were back there in like that old school 4-4-2 style. It doesn't suit Inter Miami. It doesn't make them better offensively, and it doesn't help Messi and Suárez do the things they want to do. And so I hope that we scrap that moving forward.
And then one point that came to mind again was Sergio Busquets. I think he's critical for this team to try and unlock defenses. I thought this game would have been fine if Bright would have sat off, because we don't necessarily need that transition defense on this field. And I thought we could have gone with a more attack-minded midfield, maybe even put Redondo in there with Messi as the number 10, and then have Campana and Suárez up top. So there are definitely things that Tata Martino could have done. And then, we miss Busquets, man. We need him back. We need him fit, because he really pulls everything together and actually links up everything that's missing. So him being in there would have been really good.
So where are we at with this team? I think my final answer is I actually feel fine. Like, we're a very good team, and we've never been better than we look on paper. We've never exceeded that, especially with all of our players, right? Sometimes when we are down a bunch of players, we can sort of play better than the sum of our parts. But with everyone, it never really seems to be that. But we have so much talent that oftentimes we can get away with it. We almost got away with it in this game. A point at NYCFC is really nothing to be worried about. And so I think we should be positive. I think we should be healthy. And I think as long as we have a good bounce back week next week, even 5 points, right? I think we'll win us the Supporter Shield if we get 5 points next week. And so I think Inter Miami fans should be in a very positive place and feeling good about where the team is at. Should we get to awards?
Yes, please. I think it's time.
Okay, guys, on this show, we do 6 awards: a man of the match from Inter Miami, a heron that flew north, and 2 individual awards each. And because you went first last time, it is my turn to give out the man of the match. But before we do, I have to ask you a question. Does it surprise you that I decided I was going to spend an hour of my time yesterday coming up with a comparison between every starter for Inter Miami and a New York Yankee that I felt was entirely appropriate?
No, doesn't surprise me one bit, because I know you for a while now, and that was probably the best hour that you spent the entire weekend, wasn't it? You just loved it.
I don't need to respond to that. I decided not to give those as my awards, but I will give that list out as soon as we finish awards. My man of the match, I really struggled with, because for a long time I thought I was going to give it to Toto Aviles. He ended up giving up the goal. He was, I think, the most responsible for the goal at the end. And if you give up a goal at the end, it's very difficult for me to give you the man of the match. He was really good for 90 minutes plus. Maybe we'll talk about him in a few minutes, but I think I've settled on Leo Campana. He does come on and change the game. He was the impactful sub. He was the first sub. I thought he was that hard nose, just be in the right place at the right time, using your physicality that Inter Miami needed. And it paid off almost immediately. I think the goal was his first touch. And ultimately, it is the first goal Inter Miami has scored in the run of play at Yankee Stadium in the history of Inter Miami. And so I think for that accomplishment and for every other accomplishment he's had recently, I'm giving it to Leo Campana. I considered Messi because I thought he was instrumental in both of our 2 goal-scoring opportunities. I considered Toto Aviles. I considered Noah Allen. And I considered Ian Frey. But some of those guys I have better awards for. And so I decided Leo Campana is my guy.
No, I think on stats and on paper, definitely Campana had the biggest impact, came off the bench, scored that goal, actually brought a bit of dynamism to the team because it was going stale for large parts of the game. So I'm not too fussed about that choice. You picked the right choice in Campana. Also, the fact that this is the first goal that we scored away from home at New York, massive in the run of play. And we could have potentially won with that one goal, but unfortunately, it didn't happen. I'll say that there were a couple of other candidates, Toto Aviles being one of them. I thought he was phenomenal up until that 90 plus 5 minutes. Ian Frey was really, really good. Noah Allen had a really good game. So a couple of candidates here and there, maybe Jordi Alba, but Campana with that game-winning goal, I guess no qualms about that for sure.
Okay, talk to me about the heron that flew north. And for those that are new to the show, we give out an award every episode or every post-game episode for the player doing the wrong thing. Florida herons do not fly north for the winter. They don't fly anywhere for the winter. So if you catch one flying north, they are doing the wrong thing. And that symbolizes who this award goes to. And Saur, you are the bearer of bad news today. Who's getting it?
Before I go to the heron that flew north, a point in Campana. He's now scored in 2 consecutive games.
Yep.
Yeah, he's picking up another patch of good form, and I'd love to see what his stats for goals this season are because he's been playing quietly good. He's got 7 goals and 2 assists for a bench player. That's really good. Anyways, back to heron that flew north. I'm going to give the heron that flew north award to Robert Taylor. I thought he was quite absent, didn't have a great game. He was struggling to get into it. I know he tried to do a few things, allowing Alba in behind, but it just, playing centrally didn't work for him. He needed that space in the side. Also didn't help that Miami was creating largely on the right-hand side. And when you're building on the right-hand side, on the left-hand side on that small pitch, there's barely any space, so you have to come central. So it's just, it wasn't great. He struggled a lot to get into the game. And then obviously that one goal that Suárez could have had, Robert Taylor decided to block because he was like, you know what, not today. I thought after a really positive performance in the last game, shame that he didn't have a good game today, but I didn't think this was a game for him anyways, because the size and the dimensions of the pitch don't necessarily suit his style. So I'm okay with him not having a good performance. I think that had to do with more to do with the nature of the game that we were playing than Robert Taylor himself. And I'm sure if given the chance in the next game, he's going to bounce back. So Robert Taylor, the heron that flew north for me. A couple of other candidates perhaps, but I have good awards for them. So
yeah, I definitely would have given the award to someone else. But I think it's fair. I didn't think Robert Taylor was particularly impactful at any point in this game. He was in the wrong position. And as soon as you replaced him with a player whose profile fit this game more in Campana, we score immediately and looked better, I thought, from that point on. So that's fair, man. Robert Taylor, heron that flew north. I'm going to give 3 awards in one. I'm giving the goose.
That's allowed.
I'm giving the goose. I'm giving the 5th starter, and I'm giving the Nestor Cortez award.
None of those mean anything to me because I know what your theme of the awards is, and I don't know if you're going to mention that, but none of those mean anything to me. I'm going to pick one, and I'm going to try to explain it based on that. The Goose Award.
Goose.
I think goes to it goes to Noah Allen because he looks a little bit like a goose.
We played at Yankee Stadium, which is also the Mickey Mouse Park. And so all of my awards are New York Yankees themed. The Goose Gossage, former Yankee reliever, like one of the all-time Hall of Fame great relievers. The 5th starter, for anyone that knows baseball, when you get into the playoffs, you only use 4 starters. And so your 5th starter goes into the bullpen. And this year for the Yankees, that's Nestor Cortez. The reason I'm saying this is because Ian Frey this season should be a reliever for us, not someone in Tata's eyes that's going to start. And I accept it. I know it's not going to happen. I'm not going to stop pushing for it. I think it's very obvious that it should happen, but it's not going to happen. But I do think he should be an option off the bench if you need offense. And we have never seen that from Tata. He only brings on Ian Frey if he needs defense. The only sort of backline player he will bring on if he needs offense is Jordi Alba. And I think Ian Frey should be a consideration when you need offense late in games, because he does open up a part of the pitch that frees up other players, and he can be dynamic in the final third. More so than a lot of our players, if you are only making a like-for-like sub, you're not really changing the nature of the game. Whereas if you put Ian Frey in late in the game, just like a reliever, a setup man, a goose, you can change what this team is doing offensively. And if you need a kickstart, I think that could be really helpful. I want to see that be his role over the next couple of games. A guy that comes in late to provide an offensive change, spark, and reset what we're doing offensively. And I hope Tata does that.
First of all, baseball, guys, what an absurd sport. Does it ever make sense to anybody?
Okay, I'm going to mute you again for this because we don't need to go on a baseball rant. It's an amazing sport. For anyone that loves it, congratulations. For anyone that doesn't, you're more than welcome to not. That's fine.
I will urge you guys to try cricket sometimes. It's a lot more fun and very crazy, and a lot of people watching it. Going back to your award, it's almost absurd that Ian Frey, as a right back and a centre back, provides more offensive power than half the people on the pitch. And that happened yesterday. On Saturday. And you could see that immediately. There were a couple of times where he just took the ball and ran with it and created a couple of opportunities, and he could have been at the end of it had it not been for a wayward pass or two. 100%, man. Ian Frey should be a starter, will eventually be a starter for this team. But clearly, that's not the role that Tata Martino sees for him, at least at this point in the season. And I hope he's listening to you again, because you've identified another role that Ian Frey can play for this team and be very effective at, that is coming on slightly later in the game towards the 60th, 70th minute, and offer some of the offensive firepower that we might need. And I would say he can almost be an entirely new Jordi Alba on that side. I know it's not the same, but he can open up the pitch and offer that danger on the right-hand side of the pitch as well. So
he's the most. He's the most that could be closest.
The closest, yeah. And he has some really good skill sets that fit well in that final offensive third. And you need to utilize that. You need to build that up, because there's definitely talent in there. And completely agree, he's not going to be a starter this year, but there's a place for him to make an impact off the bench as well. And we need to see more of that from Tata Martino to bring him on, because it's talent wasted, at least in this season.
Was that award good? No. Was it creative? Also no.
Yeah,
but was it topical? It was topical.
Yeah.
Okay, so tell me your first award.
I would say it was more creative than what you've come up with recently. So
that's probably
you had the same award for two people in one of our recent episodes. So anything you do after that is better. So
talk to me about your first award, and maybe there's a theme to it that I'd like to hear.
Yeah, there is a theme to it. So you went with the New York theme, and I went in the completely opposite direction. You went with the Yankees theme, playing in the Yankee Stadium, but that Yankee Stadium is basically Disney World or Disneyland, because it's not even as big as Disney World. It's Disneyland for
the Mickey Mouse Park
purposes, the Mickey Mouse Park. So my theme for every single award that I'm going to give out is a Disney movie. So the first award that I'm going to give out is the Finding Nemo Award.
Does this go to Noah Allen?
Ooh,
because
no, the explanation for every award is based on the premise of that movie.
Okay. Well, Finding Nemo. Nemo is looking for Nemo's dad is looking for Nemo. And that's why it's going to Federico Redondo, because you were looking for Federico Redondo.
Bang on. Absolutely spot on. I thought Federico Redondo.
Go ahead.
You didn't have an award for him?
I did. I had a good one. My best one was for him.
I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I took it away from
you. No, it's okay. It's okay. It's
okay. Federico Redondo started off as this promising little clownfish that we were relying on. We had a lot of promise for, and then he decided to drift away at the start of the game and never come back. And I felt like Yannick Bright was like his dad in that midfield, urging him, trying to find out where Nemo was, because for at least 70 minutes, maybe even beyond that, Federico Redondo had no impact on this game. He was responsible to be the pacemaker, the distributor, the passer on this team. And I thought he just did not play his role well. Maybe in our mind, we're mischaracterizing Redondo and mislabeling him compared to what Tata Martino sees in him. Because if Tata Martino doesn't see that passer in Redondo, then maybe he's doing a perfect job. But I think he should have been the one creating those chances in the midfield, offering that space in the middle of the park and competing with Sands and Park, who are not that good of midfielders, but I thought they were phenomenal. And apologies if you can hear the back. There's a dog barking behind me. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I didn't think Redondo was good. I was going to give him the Before All Rise award. All Rise is the Aaron Judge motto. Aaron Judge, the star of the Yankees. His rookie season, and you could call this Redondo's rookie season at Inter Miami, he hit 179, and that's really bad in baseball for those that don't know. And the next year, he went on to hit 52 home runs, which is really good in baseball. So his first year, he played 27 games, and he wasn't good. And he spent the entire offseason getting better, and he came back and was the best player of the year or something the next year, like became a superstar. And that's what I think is going to happen to Redondo. But I think we're just going to have to suffer through his first season and it not be that great. I've been saying this for a while. I don't think he has his awareness set right. And if you're asking him to do the Busquets role, which is exactly what Tata asked him to do in this game, you saw multiple times he went to that back line, sort of split the center backs and played sort of as that deep line playmaker. And all he ever did with that was just pass it to the right or left to one of the center backs. He never actually pinged it around. It's not there yet, man. And I think he's better higher up the pitch. If you want to get an impact out of Redondo, it's got to be higher up the pitch. He's not a bad player, but the awareness isn't always there. The closing down tenacity isn't always there. And then he doesn't have the distribution skills from deep that you want. Yes, he could do a little combination play. Yes, he can put an entry pass into the final third, but he's not doing that from his own, from our back third. He's got to be higher up the pitch to do that. Yes, he can carry it once or twice. But again, he had 3 what I would consider above average moments in this game. And I was counting. He had 2 nice runs two nice entry passes, one that did lead to a goal. But again, Messi and Alba did more work to create the goal than he did. And then he had 1 nice carry that resulted in an offside from Campana. He just doesn't provide enough to me to just get him consistently starting. I think Kramaski deserves an opportunity. I think when Diego Gomez is healthy, he should be back in the midfield, and it should be Busquets, Gomez, and Yannick Bright. He just doesn't do enough for me on a consistent basis, and that's it, man. And so if you're going to play him higher up the pitch.
He doesn't even need to do something revolutionary. He needs to get the ball to the right people. That's his job. He's the bridge between the defense and the offense. And as we saw, as soon as he made that line-breaking pass into Messi,
he's not that really.
Yeah, but in this game, that was his job, right? He needed to be a little bit more adventurous in putting that ball into Messi and Suárez. And as soon as he did that, Messi had the space to turn and take the ball and then create the opportunity. I wish he had done more of that, but I agree with you. There's so much potential in this player. Next season, hopefully when he goes away, I think he's going to come back much stronger, and he might have actually an elevated role in the team because he's no longer going to be that rookie player who's just come in. So hopefully next season is breakout season. But this season he's been up and down, and that's all I want to say about Redondo.
Well, and I don't think we talked much about this game. He was the reason we really struggled in the midfield. It was his responsibility to work through the central part of the pitch, and he just wasn't doing it effectively. Part of it was because he wasn't trying to, he was being safe with his passing. And so it's hard to fault someone for not turning the ball over, but at the same time, you're doing that because you don't have the ability to ping it around, which means you shouldn't be the guy in that role. You talked about needing Rojas in the midfield. I think we certainly needed Busquets in the midfield today. And you just can't replace Busquets with Redondo. That's just not setting Redondo up to succeed, and you're not setting your midfield up to succeed. And so if you don't have Busquets, you have to play a different style of midfield. And Tata has to learn that, and you got to stop putting a young player in a position where he's not really prepared to succeed. because A, it's costing your team quality play, and B, you're not helping his confidence, and C, you're forcing guys like us to go talk bad about Redondo when, again, I think he's going to be one of our stars next year. But I'm expecting a Diego Gomez-like leap, but for right now, it's just not there.
I would have really liked a midfield of Messi, Rojas, and Busquets with Gressel on the right wing. I thought that would have been a good midfield for this game.
Maybe in this game, Busquets not available, right? Who do you think should have been in the midfield in this game to complement?
Messi should have played the number 10 role, in my opinion. I don't think he should have been up top as the 2. Then I think maybe even play Redondo, Kremaski, and Messi as that triangle in the middle, and that could have worked. But again, I'm spitballing here. I haven't thought about this, but we don't really have that many options. David Ruiz, yes, but we needed to control the midfield. So I don't know if that would have been
because it didn't feel like NYCFC was really controlling the ball in the midfield. They were playing quickly through because they had the guys that were making those runs, Maxi Morales and Santi Rodriguez. They were making those runs through and the passes through. They're trying to be dynamic, and that's what we needed. Whether it was Kremaski or David Ruiz, again, it's not like the ideal player. You would have loved Matthias Rojas. You would have loved Sergio Busquets. So I understand why it was the way it was. But again, maybe in that situation, you decide we let the fullbacks be our ball progressors and we just tighten down the midfield so we don't let any runners go the other way. I don't know. It is tough. And so I'm not blaming Tata for doing what he did, but I just don't want to see Redondo continually put in a position where he's not ready to succeed yet. Okay. I'm giving the Jazz Award.
The only Jazz I know is the Utah Jazz, and they don't play baseball, so I'm not too sure what this is about. But I'm going to
go ahead and take your best guess. I want to see what you come up with.
Yeah, I think this is going to go to Noah Allen.
Why is that?
For jazzing up that back line with the beautiful haircut that he has.
It does go to Noah Allen. Jazz is the name of a player on the Yankees, Jazz Chisholm, who they traded for at the midseason point. And he was a center fielder / second baseman. And they said, we have a center fielder and a second baseman. You go try and play third base. And he's been exquisite and, by all accounts, a very healthy addition to the team. And he's been playing out of position just like Noah Allen is, except now Jazz is just the third baseman and Noah Allen is just a center back. That is back-to-back games for Noah Allen where he has been asked to be a true center back in a two-man back line, not being asked to play as like a sort of extended wing back or some weird three-man formation where he's just there at the end of the games or providing pace. He is a true center back, and he's done it well for 2 games in a row, man.
I will say Noah Allen is growing on me. Like, playing in that role is really growing on me. He's been very mature with his play, first of all. He understands exactly what his fallacies are and his issues are, and he plays a style that suits him the best. I thought this was a good opportunity for him to play in that center-back role as well by nature of the size of the pitch, so it helped him a little bit. But again, came back with flying colors, performed really well, and for the large majority of this game, I think he was our best player. He is suspended for the next game, so we're not going to see him in that role again, at least for a couple of games. The award that I had for him, do you want to guess what Disney movie I compared him to?
I'm afraid. Is it Snow White? Because there's 7 dwarves.
This is not the classics. That is, that's horrible. No, it's not. It's not that. It's Wreck-It Ralph, because I thought he had a really good performance in there, and he destroyed the entire NYC offense, at least up until the last minute, because they didn't have that many chances. I mean, they had a couple of chances. They had 70 shots, so let's not say they didn't have any chances. But I thought he did well. No,
but he defended the chances, right? Like, sometimes the center back's job is not to stop the shot, but to be in a position to affect or block or disengage or put off the shooter, right? You can't just expect them to stop. Wreck-It Ralph sort of beyond my time, but I'm excited to hear what award you have for the last player that we're going to talk about tonight.
I'm going to give the Peter Pan Award.
Peter Pan, who went to Neverland, and he was a boy that didn't want to grow up, which sounds like Toto Aviles.
Absolutely. You're on fire with today's awards. First of all, you've done really well with your awards. So I'd like to give you a round of applause for the creativity that you
You know what our awards were today? they were very topical. And I
Yeah.
appreciate that from us.
And Peter Pan, man, the boy who never wanted to grow up is Toto Aviles. You can see exactly what he does. He looked like a man out there, by the way. He's tall, and I thought he was lanky and a little bit thin. But in like when you see him in person, he's big and he's a presence. And he looked like he knew what he was doing. Like he was a man in that defense. He was working really well with Noah Allen and Ian Frey, organizing the defense. And he was really getting his stuff together. I thought he was on top of that game up until that last second where all he had to do was get in front of his player and head the ball out. And he just fell at the last hurdle. Peter Pan, he doesn't want to grow up because he still has that little bit of immaturity in his game where he goes in for a rash tackle, gets a yellow card, and then gets suspended for 5 games, gets 2 red cards. Like he has 11 yellow cards and 11 yellow cards and 2 red cards this season. That's a lot already.
He has 14 yellow cards.
Oh my Lord.
In all competitions, not just
And
MLS,
it doesn't help, but he would be so good if he just actually gets his maturity level in place and his equilibrium in his mindset, because if he learns when and where to go for the tackles, like even in the last game, he got a yellow card for no reason. Absolutely no reason. He just talked his mouth off to the referee and then got a yellow card. And now he's going to probably be suspended again. So I would love to know what the ulterior reason for that is, but he's Peter Pan. He's phenomenal as a player. I was very impressed with him yesterday. Like on that, I don't know why I keep saying yesterday. I keep thinking today's Sunday, but he was phenomenal in that game for 95 minutes, and then 1 minute his immaturity got the better of him. But I liked Aviles more after seeing him play yesterday on Saturday.
What is the movie about the robot, the lonely robot?
Wally.
Thank you. iRobot was just stuck in my head, but it's Wally.
That's Will Smith.
I know. I knew it was wrong. That was like stuck there, so I couldn't figure out what it actually was. See, Wally, a very lonely robot on the planet, just like Aviles was very lonely that he was the only one not getting a yellow card. So he decided, I'm going to go in there and I'm going to get me a yellow card. Dude, he was excellent in this game. Excellent. Again, if it wasn't for that last minute snafu, he would have been the man of the match. When he actually plays and he plays well, he can play really, really well. He is becoming the guy that we wanted when we bought him. He's another guy just like Diego Gomez that's taking that second-year step. He's not quite as impactful as Gomez, who's been amazing, but next season, dude, he's going to be awesome. And I think he's going to be gone next summer because he's going to get a big money move to, Atletico Madrid or something. I don't know what else to say, man. His
recovery run was so good, and he was really good at making sure where to push the offense coming in. And I thought he worked really well with Ian Frey, which is another point that I want to make, that those two together next season would be really, really good to see as starters for us.
He does such a good job in recovery that he can cover for that fullback when they get forward. We talk about Cello trying to be conservative to help us with the numbers, but Aviles is so good in those one-on-one situations, tracking down balls, especially if he actually kicks it all the way to the goalkeeper and not leaves it short. But there was a moment today where Drake Callender had a bad pass and sort of passed it right to the other team, and Aviles was the one who had to make the recovery and did a beautiful job, and it turned into nothing. So, yeah, a great game from Aviles, again, aside from the last moment. Just looking at other players that played. Anyone else you want to talk about? Luis Suárez, we mentioned, tough game for him. Messi, no award.
I thought he was an award for Messi, actually.
What was Messi's award?
I had cause for him. So this is more to do with the cadence of the story than the cause itself, than the story itself. So Lionel Messi, obviously not the youngster up and coming, but one of the most phenomenal racing car drivers of his generation, gets sidetracked because of the injury, and now he is in the phase of retraining himself, recalibrating himself, and getting back into his final form before he goes for that final race against the other competitors, that is Columbus and LAFC and whoever we meet in the playoffs. But Cars was what I had for him. Maybe not the best one, but still a good one.
I will say, I think I thought he was fine. Like
Yeah.
clearly the field was affecting him at first, but I thought he figured it out in a way that some other guys didn't. And I thought that he was the guy that created all of our big chances.
I'm just gonna say one thing. I am not worried about Lionel Messi.
Yeah, me neither.
Not one bit. So yeah.
Yannick Bright, I thought was solid.
Yeah.
Some of the advanced stats didn't think so, but I thought he was.
I thought he was good.
Good. He was passing the ball. Like he was trying passes. He had one where he tried to put it over the top to Ian Frey. That if that comes off, it's like all we're talking about in this episode is Yannick Bright to Ian Frey.
It's so funny because the commentators are like, "Oh, he should have looked at Gresso. He was free on the side." I was like, "That was a perfect ball. That's exactly the ball we needed."
The reason why I wanted to bring him up though is because that is a ball that Sergio Busquets would play, and Busquets would land it, but you can tell that for Yannick Bright and for a lot of these players, you see the same thing with Noah Allen when he plays wide. They are absorbing what these guys are doing, and they're sort of copying some of their play styles. I remember Noah Allen, when he does play left wing back earlier in the season, he was whipping those balls to the sort of top of the post instead of trying to get it right in front of goal. And that's classic Jordi Alba to Lionel Messi. So these guys are growing and they are learning from these players. And I thought Yannick Bright and Sergio Busquets, you could see there what he was thinking. Julian Gressel, kind of a quiet game. Kramaski off the bench. Kristoff off the bench, didn't do much. Jordi Alba, Drake Callender, I don't know, anything anywhere?
No, I think it was fine. Drake Callender had a little bit of an iffy moment that I think Aviles bailed him out of. But overall, I thought Callender was strong. Again, you're seeing him come out a lot quicker off his line and defending his box really well. I don't think he could have done anything in that corner. That was headed straight into his net. Overall, had a decent game. Not too bad.
Okay, before we talk about the Supporter Shield race one last time and just where Miami's at, I'm going to run through this for 45 seconds because I'm a co-host of this show and I feel like I get to. Lionel Messi, Babe Ruth, best Yankee player of all time. Lou Gehrig was Babe Ruth's best teammate at the time. So that's obviously Luis Suarez. Jordi Alba gets Mickey Mantle because Mantle, the best Yankee player of the 60s era and one of the 2 or 3 best of all time. Robert Taylor, I'm giving to Hideki Matsui because great player, but always underappreciated from Japan. Maybe he didn't always get the notoriety he deserved, but a phenomenal player. Julian Gressel gets Marcus Stroman, a free agent we signed in the offseason that's just a good, solid, reliable player. Federico Redondo, Aaron Judge, I already did that. Ian Frey, I'm changing up to Hassan Dominguez. He's the young prospect that everyone in Yankee land wants to see. He just got called up and he's been balling out, and they just want to see more of this guy. Anthony Volpe to Yannick Bright. He's the sort of rookie / second-year player that's everyone thinks is going to be a stud moving forward. Noah Allen, Jazz Chisholm, I did that one. Toto Aviles, Austin Wells, the defensive catcher that also adds a punch and they think is going to be a huge player for the playoff race. And then Drake Callender, Jorge Posada, one of the great catchers and the best recent all-time Yankee catcher. And so that's my list, and it took me almost an hour to come up with. Guys, is there anything else? Sorry, I'm sorry. I appreciate you.
I was going to say something. I think you should put that list up on Twitter and then tag the NYCFC account and see what the New York fans have to say about you comparing Miami players to the New York Yankees. I'm sure there's going to be a few words there, but well done. I like that list. I really like the effort that you put into that.
Tony says no Mariano Rivera. He was going to be my Ian Frey, but then I learned about Hassan Dominguez, and so I felt that one was more appropriate. Guys, we'll be back on Thursday for a midweek episode. We'll be talking about sort of the new things we've learned about the roster. We'll talk about Chris Henderson. We'll talk about roster building. We'll do some advanced analytics. But until then, I'm Scotty. It's my co-host, Saur. Saur, wrap it up for us.
All right, guys. We're getting to the end of the regular season. Miami has, 3 games left to play. We are going to have some tough games. Four games left to play with that New England game as well. We're going up against Charlotte and then Columbus and then Toronto and finally New England. Stick with us as we cover the rest of the season. Get involved as we make our way into the playoffs. And soon we'll be talking about how Inter Miami wins everything. Until next time, guys, it's been a pleasure.